With how the industry seems to be heading these days, I think it's finally time for us to start expecting the unexpected. The original Soul Hackers was an Atlas RPG released for the Sega Saturn all the way back in 1997 in Japan, with it being ported to the PlayStation 2 years later. After that was the end of the line for Soul Hackers, a singular entry in what begged to be expanded upon in some way. Fast forward to 2013 in North America is when we finally got the game localized officially on the 3DS, seemingly out of nowhere, and the game was praised for its story and characters, though its dungeons were much to be desired. This kind of created a sense of hope that the series would be expanded on in some fashion, maybe even for the Wii U, but I think nearly 10 years later, we all know that didn't happen, but it did plant a seed for what could be, and thus now we have Soul Hackers 2 for everything but the Nintendo Switch. Funny how things turn out, am I right? So I will say up front though, this game may have Soul Hackers' name attached to it, but you don't need to have played the original in order to play this one, which worked out for me because I've never had the pleasure to try it out, unfortunately. But I can say for sure that after playing 2, I'm definitely interested in checking out its predecessor. Maybe I'll even do a full-out retrospective of it at some point if you all be down for it. As always, the easiest way to let me know is by liking the video and subscribing to the channel. Since apparently 90% of you all like watching the videos but aren't subscribed, doing so not only helps me out, but it makes things easier for YouTube to ensure you see my videos when they come out. So without further ado, let's talk about my 20 hours with Soul Hackers 2 and how I just fell in love with it. So similarly as the first Soul Hackers game, 2 takes place in a technologically advanced society. However, there's a war going on between 2 factions of devil summoners, Yatagarasu and the Phantom Society, 2 groups who in the grand scheme of things want to make the world a better place, but their executions for how they want to go about it couldn't be more different. Yatagarasu, who wants to help the world and its people, while the Phantom Society, with no faith in this world as it is, wants to pull the world from its roots and begin humanity anew. Foreseeing the end of the world, supernatural entity and what's basically the god of artificial intelligences, Ion, dispatches 2 of its AI creations, Ringo and Fig, with brand new human bodies into the human world in an attempt to prevent the world's fate. It's said that Ion usually would never interfere in the affairs of the human world, but with its logic systems predicting an incredibly high chance the world would end if circumstances aren't intercepted, a move must be made. So with that, Ringo and Fig split up in order to find specific targets that must be protected in order to stop the leader of the Phantom Society from plunging the world into its demise. However, when Ringo meets with her first target, Arrow, she's too late as he's already been killed. Though all is not lost due to her supernatural ability to soul hack. So basically, if a person is recently killed, Ringo can soul hack the deceased, plunging into their souls, connect with them, bringing them back to life. However, only if the victim wills to go on. I thought this was really freaking cool because, well, 1, I didn't know what the freak we were going to do since he was dead, and 2, because I wasn't sure when soul hacking was going to come into play, or even what it was, since I have no context for its meaning, since I never played the first game, and never watched any trailers after its original reveal. So after a successful soul hack, Arrow is brought back to life, determined to fulfill his mission no matter what, only with Ringo in tow now. Fig, on her side of things, was also too late to save her target, Ichiro Honda, a computer engineer who left a final message that only we seem to be able to decipher. It talked about the importance of Covenant, with not much more intel than that. I'm not sure why Fig didn't just soul hack him too though. I know this happens before Ringo finds Arrow, but still, it's likely because soul hacking is dangerous for its user if it fails, and it wasn't even originally meant to bring people back from the dead. But oh well. After this, we finally start getting into some real gameplay. So like its predecessor 2, Soul Hackers 2 is a turn-based game, the usual Atlas specialty. However, I kind of feel like there's a lot less to it than in their other games, more on that in a moment. But like our usual fashion, each party member can use 1 demon in combat at a time, each able to hold a variety of different physical and magical abilities which can be used to exploit enemy weaknesses. That's the main objective of battle. Hit the enemy with whatever weakness they have to maximize damage output. The trick comes from determining what those weaknesses are though, so trial and error is the name of the game here. I find it best to go based on the design of each demon. If it looks like it's got wings of some kind, it might be weak to gunfire. If it looks like a snowman, then it's time to bring the heat. It's important to keep up with what demon you have equipped too though, because as you play the game and your arsenal of weapons get upgraded and the demons you have at your disposal increases, swapping the one equipped can also change what your weakness is. So balancing out having party members that can exploit weaknesses to enemies while minimizing the weaknesses we have is the true goal of the combat in this game. I'll go a bit more into detail about how to go about this kind of thing later, but I want to bring up the star of this combat system, since every RPG has to have some kind of gimmick, and this game is no different. For this game, unlike the usual Atlas press turn system, we've got the Sabbath system for Soul Hackers 2. So what this does is that in combat, every time you exploit a weakness for an enemy, a demon is added to the stack at the top right of the screen, making the number go up. The more weaknesses we target, the higher the number will go. After all party members have acted, Ringo will perform a Sabbath, which is basically just an all-out attack from Persona, and its strength is determined by how high the stack was. But yeah, that's basically it for the combat system in the game. It does get a bit more complex with some added features being introduced as the game goes on, like commander skills for example, but none of those things truly change the core of how the combat mechanics work, the only one being a commander skill that lets you swap out an equipped demon during battle. Later on, you'll get access to demon fusing, so how this works is kind of self-explanatory. Out of the demons you have in your arsenal, you can fuse 2 of them together to create a new one, and you'll be able to select which of the pair's abilities you'd like to carry over into the fusion. This is vital to progression because I promise you, you won't make it by just demon recruitment alone. That only gets you the ones in the local area, while fusion can grant you access to an array of really different kinds. Of course, that means you're sacrificing the ones you have, so if possible, it may be best to max out their affinity first, granting you a new mystique, an equipable that raises your affinity to a specific medium. But fusion is fun and you never know what you're going to get before getting there, and it feels pretty precise here too, since it feels like most of what you want to get is too high of a level for you to make, but I think through compromise, you can find new favorites from what you wouldn't normally use. Moving on though, the game becomes a lot more in-depth when we finally make it to a maximum of 4 party members, which I found myself all really liking. Arrow is a pretty straight and narrow kind of character. He's got a lot of baggage that he carries, but he doesn't let it hold him back from doing what needs to be done. Kind of a hard person to dislike. Melody, on the other hand, is our next party member who was actually the romantic partner of the main villain of the game, making her a former member of the Phantom Society, which, as you can expect, makes her and Arrow not the chummiest pair, since Arrow belongs to Yatagarasu, their enemy faction. I like that this isn't just a detail thrown in so we can have the stereotypical party members who are always arguing. There's a mature layer added on top of this by they're not constantly screaming at each other like teenagers would. They genuinely disagree with each other and find the other ignorant, but you can tell they genuinely don't understand why the other would have their stance on how things are. With the world as terrible as it is and on a faster than ever decline, why would anyone want to keep things how they are if things can be born anew? Or even through the world's darkest hours, how could someone be okay with literally destroying the world? The world has overcome crisis after crisis. Humans have endured and made it this far by persevering. So destroying the world when there's even a slim chance things can get better is just evil, and there's no other way to say it. This makes each character likable in their own sense. Melody has obviously been unhappy, depressed even, for an extremely long time, and truly believes the quickest way to happiness there is teaming up with the Phantom Society. And Arrow, despite it all, truly believes in humanity and the direction we can still take. I really like their dynamic, but at the same time, things get a strange yet interesting twist added to the equation when Saizo joins the party. He's more of a bounty hunter devil summoner. He's worked on both sides and goes wherever the money is, no matter how dangerous. But because of this, he's kind of become neutral in the standing of how the future should be brought about. The backstory behind him is arguably even more interesting than the previous 2, and I don't even want to spoil it, but I'll say for now that everyone has a reason for thinking the way they do. Maybe it was an old friendship or a past relationship, or maybe even the life you were forced to live growing up. All of this makes our core cast extremely solid in my book. I'd say I can argue that Ringo is the least interesting, maybe because her backstory is kinda non-existent since we literally saw her come into being at the beginning of the game, so there's no weight in who this person is and is established as we continue on. This doesn't mean I don't like her character. In fact, she's one of my favorites next to Saizo. She just got a very charming personality and she's fun to have on screen. Her input in conversations and cutscenes can also raise her soul level with specific party members tied to that dialogue option. Soul level is basically acting as the strength of your bond with a certain character. This game goes the extra mile too by making them feel like a team of people who are getting to know each other. The bar hangouts are fun and give us greater insight into the mindset of a character. The story already does a great job with this, so further expanding on it in a way that feels naturally separate from the primary narrative feels refreshing. I'm glad Atlas added these in this specific way, because maybe this is a hot take, but despite being one of my favorite aspects of the Persona games, I think sometimes, and in a lot of cases for Persona 5, I feel they use social links to progress characters in ways that the main story should have done. I feel that social links shouldn't become some of my biggest reasons for liking these characters. They should grow that love that's already become established thanks to the story. I feel Persona 4 does this perfectly, yet Persona 5 stumbles here. I think Persona 3 does too, but in some cases it's better and in others it's definitely not. I can see why some Persona fans dislike social links being a thing, when 1 and 2 made the relationship progressions feel a lot more naturally woven. Soul Hackers 2 also does something that I personally have only experienced one other time in an RPG, and it's arguably my favorite game ever made. So it does the Xenoblade Chronicles thing where his teammates talk to each other during combat. Not after, not before, I'm talking during. When picking between my attacks for each character, they often remark on what you're deciding to do, like Melody mocking Arrow for even considering using Bufu on a Jack Frost, or Ringo telling Saizo when hovering over an exploitative move to use it and go all out. I don't know, man. I know it's such a small thing and not necessary, but so many games just have generic or overall basic battle quotes when using attacks, and that it's hard to get hyped for it, I guess. But not only does doing things this way get me hyped when backed by this awesome soundtrack, but it also strengthens my bonds with the cast, you know? It's subtle character building, completely unnecessary, but goes a long freaking way for further establishing characters and their dynamics. It pumps me the freak up when my homies are gassing me up to hit the enemy where it hurts, and it makes me think more critically when they note when I'm being too risky. Though I say all this, and maybe it's something they'll fix in a day one patch, but there's a quote for every single menu movement. So every time you scroll to a different move or switch to a different menu, someone is saying something, and it's easy for the quotes to kind of talk over each other. A simple fix, I'm sure, but again, I'm playing this a while before release, so there's bound to be a few kinks here and there. However, I'd say the thing that bothered me most, or more accurately, the thing I disliked the most about my time with the game, was unfortunately the level design, and a lot tied to it. So let's start with the towns. Throughout the game, there's going to be a lot of different places you can access from the world map, and in these towns, they strangely go back to the old Atlas recipe by taking camera control away from the player and having the dynamic camera. This wasn't the case for Persona 5 Strikers, so I'm surprised they went back to this. But this isn't the big reason I don't like being out in the world. It's because Ringo controls like the heaviest block of ice ever put on someone's dinner table. In motion, she feels largely fine, but coming to any kind of stop, which is frequent when wanting to explore and talk with NPCs, it's like old school Mario ice physics. It takes her nearly 2 seconds to come to a stop, so trying to talk with NPCs or being precise at all is annoying because you'll often either completely miss them or talk to the wrong person. Not a huge deal, but something that happens every time, and I got a little annoyed. But by far the worst offender is the dungeons, man. What the heck happened here? I wasn't too sure what to expect, again because I never played the first game, but as I'm making this video and researched a bit of the response to the first game, it seems this was always meant to be, and explains a lot because one of the biggest criticisms I've seen with that game is the dungeon design is terrible, which is exactly how I feel for Soul Hackers 2. The visual design looks cool, the aesthetic is really nice, but that's actually it. The level design itself for the dungeon leaves a ton to be desired. There's nothing to any of it. It's just a maze of repeated assets and narrow corridors with enemies popping up left and right, taking zero effort to avoid unless it's a special threat encounter, most of which don't have any puzzles in them. They start trying to add something to them with these stupid locked doors that you have to scour around the maze and find the specific demon scout that found the key for you. You know, out of all the demons you have in your arsenal, which are also out and about. So in the end, it's nothing but padding. There's no puzzle being solved here because you already found the objective. They just unnecessarily added roadblocks, likely because they felt the dungeons would be too short if you just went from point A to point B. They later try to add a new kind of roadblock into the mix with these special portal-like doors where when you walk through them, they close the path behind you and open up nearby ones, though to note, not all nearby ones. This completely destroys the pace because the level design is so simple and asking so little, yet they throw in a mechanic that serves zero purpose besides wasting time. Why are these here? There's no narrative reason they are. I know it's a game and you gotta accept some stuff, but it's hard to do that when those things they're forcing on you just aren't fun. And the enemies just infinitely respawn no matter how many times you beat them. It just makes getting around more annoying because I'm trying to go down the right path, but a simple mess up adds another 5 minutes of useless running around and avoiding enemies on top of that because I've already fought them 100 times. I already got over leveled without realizing they infinitely respawn because I thought it'd be easier to get around if I just took them out, but that wasn't the case. It's not the sole reason I got over leveled, but it definitely didn't help. And the reason going through these dungeons sucks is that Ringo is so slow, man. The animation is nice and looks the appropriate speed, but there's no dash button in these massive maze-like dungeons. Thankfully, there's checkpoints you can teleport between since you can make it back to the entrance with them. But I also feel because of how big the dungeons are and how many battles you'll get into, MP will constantly be on your mind more than it should since you'll be running low on it seemingly always, because when you're not exploiting weaknesses, things take way too long to kill. I wish you could full heal HP and MP from the world map, but you have to go all the way back to the hideout and rest or have a meal to do so. I don't like this because having a meal before leaving for a dungeon gives you specific effects while out, but if you come back at all, it immediately takes away your meal effects, which is dumb. Why not just give every meal a timer? There's all these different foods, but I can't even tell what each do or give you. Everyone seems to have an opinion on it, liking the meal or not, but there's no noticeable downsides to always feeding ourselves stuff we hate, so why does it matter if they like them or not? And again, why does it waste my meal effect just because I came back here? It makes it where you'll go through 2 or 3 times as many meals than you normally should. Leaving the dungeon for a simple pick-me-up for MP and HP, make you sit through 2 loading screens, canceling your meal, making you redo it because you might as well since you're going back in after this, sitting through another 2 loading screens, all for you to make it back to where you just were, ultimately drains on you after a while. In my last session, I legit said screw it and Alt F4'd, man. I was so bored. Borderline dozing off from this level design, and it takes a lot for that to happen to me at 3 in the afternoon. I think it sucks to say all this because I'd already fallen in love with the game by this point. During my 20 hours so far, I was loving the game with very minimal complaints, but around the 15-hour mark was when these thoughts started to creep in and I couldn't look past them. But I want to reiterate, I do still love this game. Those annoying things about it don't take away from the great times I've had with these characters, this story, jamming out to the music. I just want to express my true and unfiltered experience with this game. I'm not going to sit up here and act like yet another YouTube reviewer who acts like their thoughts are the end-all be-all of what makes a good game good or a bad game bad. I am not a reviewer, and I've never thought of myself as one. I just love playing RPGs and want to share my experiences with them. Like when I saw this part, I went crazy, or when I got here, I wanted to tear my hair out kind of thing, you know? My opinion is one in a sea of different takes, but only I had this specific playthrough. So I guess what I mean to say is to play Soul Hackers 2, man. Some of the things I've said will likely get patched on release day, but again, these things don't take away from the good times I had, and I'm super excited to continue with the game and see how this story closes. I'm more than willing to come back to the game one day for a full-length retrospective too, and maybe by then we'll have done one for the first game too. But I love Soul Hackers 2, man. It's not perfect by any means, but it's a hard game to stay frustrated with because dang it, these characters get me hyped every time I see them stand up for what they believe in, marching towards their goal, not letting heartbreak stand in their way, and carving a better future for themselves. And that's how I fell in love with Soul Hackers 2.